photography. I'm Patricia and I'm coming to you from a little village up on top of a mountain in the middle of Norway, just outside of the city of Trondheim. I do not know how this is going to work today. I am sitting outside of our barn. It is so sunny today, but the wind is blowing. It's a windstorm here today. And I've already been down the lake onto the lake for some skiing and just to soak up this sun. But it was just too windy up in the forest for me to sit and do my usual recording, and also by the lake the wind was just extremely cold. So I decided to come back up in front of the barn and talk a little bit today. I have a lot to talk about, but I want to talk a little bit today about my knitting, and I want to talk a little bit about some more of the history of the Selbuvotter, and I want to talk a little bit about the Norwegian language and how to support those of you that have purchased the Selbuvotter book. So I'll do that at the very end in case you're not really interested. The kind of tips that I'll give with the language can be used with, pretty much any Scandinavian pattern, even though in Swedish, of course, the words will be slightly different. If you have a general understanding, I think it's quite easy to figure out. So I might just talk about my knitting outside, and then I might move to a more shaded area and do some of the history, or I might move around as I like to do. So as many of you know, yesterday I was on the most exciting adventure into Selbu, and I really had hoped to bring you that adventure in this vlog number 10. But the problem with that is that it's going to take a lot of editing, and really I want to take my time with that adventure and make sure that it's enjoyable and that you take something away from it, because I could have just edited it together quite quickly, but the experience was a lot richer and more in depth than I had even imagined. So I hope you will bear with me and you'll allow the time for that visit to really be put together in a most appropriate way for viewing. The problem with that is that I'm on my way to Edinburgh in just 3 days, which means that the beginning of this week is going to be quite busy for me, making sure that everything is settled at home, and also with my work as a teacher. So, and then also preparing myself for Edinburgh. So my time is really limited this week, and I'm going to work on those extra things as I can and bring that to you very soon. Today we will just continue with the Selbuvotter history as we are with the coloring of the mittens, and then I will bring you that in a very soon vlog. Very soon will I bring it to you. I also have put many kind of impressions on my Instagram feed, so if you are interested you can follow me there, and I might put a few more because I know this is there's a lot of interest around visiting this museum. I will say that I feel a real pressure or a real challenge to bring it to you in an appropriate way, because it's going to be very different to experience it through video. It's something that I don't think even I understood how amazing it would be experiencing it firsthand. And I'm also just trying to internalize that and digest it and reflect upon it. And I don't even really think that I have come to really reflect on what the experience was like. So I met Solveig, which she had such a deep impact on me and my thinking, and I interviewed some of the people at Husflid, the Selbu Husflid, which is so tied to the history of maintaining the history of the Selbuvotter mittens. So there's a lot to talk about. It's coming, and I thank you for your patience and understanding as it does. I really am excited about the interest and the connections that I've made because of this shared passion. So I brought out my tea, and I wanted to tell you that here on the farm, although I often joke and say that this is a pretend farm, I really do a lot, as much as I can, producing on the farm for things that we use in the winter. And I guess as you come to know me more or visit us here on the farm, you'll learn these things. But the first thing is I'm enjoying a really wonderful mug of mint tea that I made myself. I grow mint here on the farm in my kitchen garden, and I dry it every year, and I make a mint blend, which I enjoy throughout the winter. So today I'm having a cup of that, and I've had cups of it several times when I've chatted with you, but I thought it could be very interesting to know that on the farm I do produce lots of herbs, especially, that I use throughout the winter, as well as vegetables that are winter hardy and that I can store in the food room that I spoke to you about, the walk-in refrigeration. It's dark there, and I can use those sorts of organic vegetables throughout the year. So I'm enjoying my cup of mint tea because it is very cold. I'm sitting in the snow on my sheepskin that I introduced to you before and that I take everywhere. And it's really delicious. So, and such a joy to create something yourself that you can actually use when it's very cold. So I have to say, I've been very busy with my history, and I've been very busy with, just reading and studying and preparing for my trip to Selbu. And of course, I work full time. And my son is away on a leadership camp. There was a lot of preparation for that. So I don't have a lot to share with you as far as knitting is concerned. But that brings me to the topic of sometimes people ask me why I call this a vlog and not a podcast. First of all, technically a vlog is a video log. It is not a podcast. A podcast is really just for the ears and is related to the iPod that Apple made. The second reason that I call this a vlog and not a podcast is because you're not going to come to me and find your typical podcast. I think I don't feel comfortable in that arena. I know that I'm not one of those podcasters that is going to show lots of purchases and lots of knitting and things. Although I knit all the time and purchases and things, I don't really feel that I fit into that category, because for me, stories and learning is more important, and also nature. So I feel at odds with what to call this, and I'm sure that it won't be typical for those that really find an interest in watching me. Sometimes I think, how long can this really go on, the interest for these stories? But as long as a few people are interested, I'll keep going because I find so much joy in it. So really, coming to that, I haven't had a lot of time to knit. I've been knitting on my Selbuvotter for the New Hampshire Knits knit along that the Claire at the Wolly Thistle and New Hampshire knits. If you don't know about the Wolly Thistle, they are the source in the United States for pure wools from Europe. And so I've been knitting on my Selbuvotter, and I have just been doing that. It's kind of a secret because I haven't decided if those are going to be a gift or not, so I've only shown a couple of photos of that. But I've really been working on my rusty cardigan with Plotulopi. And I wanted to share that today because if you have never seen Plotulopi or if you haven't knit with it, I wanted to talk a little bit about that today. So first of all, Plotulopi comes in a wheel. It comes in a plate. And that is the reason it's called Plotulopi, because that means, translated from Icelandic, plate. Now what's interesting, I'm going to open my notes because I have done some research and I want to make sure that I remember everything. Plotulopi is created in a stack of 18 plates. And the way that it is wound into these plates, the bottom one has the first strand and the top one has 18 strands from all of the other plates. So it depends on which plate you receive in your order, but the inside of the plate is going to be really, really messy from that preparation. And you're just going to take that messy bit out and not worry about it. You haven't messed up your plate or you haven't done anything wrong when you find that sort of mess of yarn right in the middle. So it's made in a stack of 18. Now, lopi in itself, that word just means roving. And it was first knit unspun in 1920. That's the first time someone wrote an article or there was evidence of knitting with the unspun yarn. Now, it was knit into a scarf by the woman that wrote the article. And she came to find out that although this was the first time it's documented that it was knit with this unspun lopi roving, there were many knitters that had done it before, but they were too ashamed to admit it because knitting with this roving and not spinning it, they felt was very lazy. So they never admitted it. But it is an unspun roving. This one is the single ply. You see, just in the wind, it's airy, it's light, and it breaks very easy unless you are careful with it. Now, I'll talk about the breakage in just a minute. The reason that you're able to knit with Plotulopi or the unspun yarn is because the inner coat is a very soft and it's very short hairs. But the outer coat is the tog hair. That's the more coarse hair. And so the tog hair grips the short hair in this here. And when you knit it, then the tog hair connects to the soft hair, and this is such a strong fabric. So that's really how Plotulopi works. Now, it will break easily, okay? It's broken on me mostly through the moving of it. Like if I grab it to picking it up and I'm going to start knitting and maybe I've grabbed it and it's broken in that way. I've only had it break once during the knitting. Now if that happens, you're going to just simply lay the two broken bits together and you're going to just moisten, it's a split splicing, and gently connect that back together. Yeah, splice it back together. It works fine. You won't notice it in the knitting at all. One of the things that you can do if you want to, I did not do it because I really wanted the raw experience of knitting with this unspun roving. But one of the things that I read, a technique that can help you, because some people have commented that they had it in their stash or they tried before and they were very, very frustrated with it. Now, one of the techniques that you can use if you're frustrated is to sit and wind it into a ball. When you do that, you're giving it a bit of a twist that it needs to strengthen it during the knitting. So that's one tip that you can do. Now, as I said, I have not done that, but it is a tip if you're insecure or you've had an experience which did not go well. That will give it a slight twist. The other tip that I want to give you is that when you are casting on, if you find a lace weight yarn, now I did not do this, but if I had been frustrated, I would have used this tip. If you get yourself a similar colored lace weight yarn, you don't want to use fingering, you want to use a lace weight, a really light lace weight, and you just knit with the two strands together as you cast on or as you cast off or as you are grafting, for example, under the arms or whatever. That will reinforce for you and will stop your frustration. I mean, it depends on what kind of knitter you are, really. If you're a tight knitter, then that lace is just going to really give you just some feeling of security when you're knitting with the Plotulopi casting on. I would also advise you to just try it without, and then if you're frustrated, use that lace weight to get you going. And then once you've cast on and done your cast on, maybe a couple of rows with the lace weight, let that go and then continue on with just the Plotulopi. That's my advice for that. And so you would want to use the lace weight when you're casting on, when you're binding off, or when you're grafting. Now, there's some people that have chosen to use Letlopi. And just for fun, just a tip, I don't know if you know, but Letlopi is actually when you knit two plaits together. So if you are feeling frustrated, maybe you had an experience where it didn't work out, then maybe you want to knit with two Plutulopis at the same time, and then you're going to get the Letlopi experience. Now, one of the tips that you can do if you only have one plate and you want to work at the same time is to pull from the center and pull from the outside. That's one of the tips, but probably knitting with two plates at once would be easier. So that's what I've been knitting on this week. I actually showed a video on my Instagram feed of how I do it. And I just have to say that for me, I think it was just a really to totally relax with your body. You need to have the mental mindset that you can do it and just totally relax with your knitting. And once I did that, it just felt like knitting with any other kind of yarn. So that's really all I have been working on outside of the mitten knit along with New Hampshire knits. The other thing I wanted to share with regards to my knitting is what I was wearing last time I vlogged, I think. I got some questions. So this is my, it's made by, the designer is Vera Valimaki, and it is, it's got 3 colors. I cannot remember the name of it. I did not write it down. But if you go to her page, this was such a popular knit at the time. And you see that it is not my favorite shawl shape. It is a circular, sort of a circular shawl. I knit it in Wollmeise, the German yarn, in 3 different colors, a lime green, a dark purple, and then this purple. And this one is on my Ravelry page. So I'm a complete failure at Ravelry when it comes to uploading and all of that. But this one is actually on my Ravelry page, and you can see the colors that I used and whatnot. It took me a long time to learn how to wear this shawl in a way that I felt comfortable. But now that I have that down the way that I wear it, I love it, and I wear it often. So this is knit in the, I think it's the pure, so it's just the fingering weight. And one of the tips that I have that I didn't really, in my journey as a knitter, did not really understand was this beginning, I feel, is quite, it's quite tight. So if I knit this shawl again, I would have probably recommended to go up a needle size maybe, or I don't know. I just find this, I think this is really what gives it its shape, but this is quite a tight. Now by the end of it, I had some better knowledge and I used a larger needle to cast off. So this part is the beginning and this is the end. So it's only at the very top that I feel this design is quite tight. And I would like to prevent that if I did it in the future, but I love this shawl. I love the colors. I'm really love the striping and the short row techniques that I learned. And like I said, this was a shawl that was really popular for a long time, kind of like Find Your Fade. It was one of those kind of really just took the Ravelry and the knitting community quickly, and everybody was knitting it. I have to say that I often don't join into those things until very late, and I did not knit this shawl when everyone else was knitting it. I knit it quite a bit after everyone else knitted, and that's usually typically my personality, that I'm a little bit late to the party with most things. But oh, now I know, it's called the Color Affection Shawl. So it's, I really recommend the pattern. Anything Vera Välimäki designs is really lovely. So I'm thinking about moving now and to another location where I can see better, maybe take off my sunglasses and share with you a little bit of the Selbuvotter history and also support a little bit with the language within the book. So I'll be back. So I decided to just open the door and move up into my studio because I know that the wind was quite blowing and loud, and I hope it wasn't too uncomfortable. I apologize for that if it was. But as I say, we're having a really heavy windstorm right now. And it's a beautiful day, it's very cold, but this wind is strong. And actually at this moment we have no Wi-Fi or electricity. So it has blown that out and there's some kind of a glitch in the system. So yeah, so I just decided, I don't know that my studio is ready for viewing really, because we're just opening it up and we're just getting it ready for the spring. But I just thought I'd open the door and sit here and just finish talking to you today about the history that I want to share, and also a little bit about the language within the book that might be supportive. Of course, as an American, sharing the language, the Norwegian language, that can be quite tricky if you have Norwegian friends that are watching, but I'm not afraid really to speak the language or to make mistakes with the language. I'm a very open person, so if you find that I have made a mistake or I should work on some pronunciation, I really enjoy that kind of feedback, so it doesn't bother me at all. And like when I was talking to you about hygge, or kurs, I feel that the only way to learn is often to get that kind of support, so I'm okay with that. Making mistakes is how we learn, and I make lots of them. So anyway, I'm sitting here in my studio, as I said, and this is the spinning wheel that was in my husband's family, and they were just going to get rid of this, and I salvaged it, and although I have no clue how it works, it really brings me a lot of joy. And I also have salvaged these tools. I don't know whose these are, but these are carding tools, and look, the wool was still on them, someone that was doing carding, and these just having them brings me a lot of joy. I do understand how the carding, the combs work, so, but I really enjoy having those as well. So, as I told you, I think it's really important that we kind of understand the history of the Selbuvotter in relation to colors, because we know that Marit Amstad started knitting with the basic colors, the black and the white colors. Now, this is very interesting to me because I am trying to become a shepherdess of the Grå Trøndersau, which is a protected breed of sheep in this region. The sorting of that wool is done in various stages, from light grays to very dark, almost black. So there's quite a bit of sorting of the fleece in order to attain the natural hues or tones of the color within that fleece. The white sheep color is also found here in Norway, quite prevalent actually. I don't quite I'm very knowledgeable about the Grå Trøndersau, but I'm still coming to learn about the other breeds of sheep. I find it fascinating, but I'm not very knowledgeable about those sheep yet. But when you look inside the book, there is all sorts of information on, it says garn og ull, which is yarn and wool. And then you see this where they took the very white wool from. Yeah, there's wonderful photos in here. But it's the Norwegian white sheep, hvit sau. So that is a, they say in the book that it's a standardized race. And yeah, so there's a lot to learn about the breeds of sheep. And for me, the Grå Trøndersau is really what I focus on and what I am learning most about now, because that is what I'm trying to achieve here on the farm. But here's a picture of the Grå Trøndersau within the book. And they are a wonderful, local protected breed of sheep, which is why it's quite challenging for me to achieve all of the regulations and requirements to have them here on the farm. It's a process, and it's an important process. It's a process that I accept and that I am very willing to work through, so that one day I will have them and they will have the best life and the best environment, and will produce the most beautiful wools that I hope to distribute to people that also have the same passion as myself. So within the book, the history, as we move chronologically with the history, this week I really wanted to talk with you about the coloring, because as I said, the coloring of the yarn started with the natural colors. And within the book, you see there's a whole section on the history of the coloring. Now, in the late 1800s is when the more permanent, not permanent, but the more chemical dyes entered the world for people to dye with. And what's very interesting is this was not done commercially. So as you think of indie dyers today, or if you are an indie dyer, there's a very, I don't know, there was a time in knitting that I didn't really understand about indie dyeing. And so you might also have had that within your knitting journey. I had no really concept of people that dyed yarn at home or how that worked. And I have participated in a lot of natural dyeing investigations, but really, this indie dyeing thing is not new. I mean, the first chemical dyes that came out was in 1856, and these people did it within their homes. So the indie dyeing was happening then. The problem with these first dyes were that they were not permanent. So they would fade very quickly, and the first colors that were out was a purple, and that one would fade to gray. But what is most interesting in relation to the Selbuvotter is that the women, and this is the most fascinating part that I wanted to share with you. The women knit the mittens in the standard black and white from the natural wools, and the first time they were dyed was to make them for weddings or christenings or all of these celebrations. They call them fest mittens. So not really translating it to party, but very special occasion mittens. And they were knit in the original colors and then dyed red. Red was the symbol of something extra special in the beginning. So the red colored mittens that you see were the first time they were really colored for weddings again, christenings, and so on. Now, these indie dyed dyes, again, did not last. They faded quickly, and often there were used only the two colors. So first you have purple and you have red, and then of course blue was the most difficult, which came from indigo. But then all of that was happening in 1850, in the 1850s and on. And the oldest mittens that are registered in the museum, I just want to look here, are from 1859, and they are in the book, and very special christening mittens that I could see in the museum here was when they had a blue background with a red foreground. So that would have been a very expensive, considered a very rich and a very expensive pair of mittens because of the blue. Now, in 1930, the first permanent colors came, and these were dyes that chemically stayed, and then the commercial dyeing of yarn could happen. And so women could get access to commercial yarns in the probably a variety of rainbow colors. What was interesting with the Selbuvotter, however, was that they mostly stuck to either the original black and white colors, or they stuck with the red, white, and blue. Now, I want to tell you, it's not in the book, but that I know of. I must check that out. But one of the things that really struck me about the Selbu mittens and the colors and whatnot was that the war had a very big influence on the mittens and the colors and things like that. And I started thinking, okay, why did they stick with red, white, and blue? Why weren't they more adventurous? Like now, if you just put in the hashtag Selbuvotter on Instagram and you want to have a look, you will see every color of the rainbow. You will see them knit in turquoise or orange or whatever, breaking the traditional black and white or the red, white, and blue. Well, during the World War, when Germany occupied my city, if you remember, I took you up to the Festningen, the fort that defended the city that the Germans built. there was a mitten that was knitted as a resistance mitten. Now, I think it's Bristol Ivy that has knit or designed the mitten with the resistance on the front now in our political arena. I think so. I hope I'm not mistaken about that. But I've seen several resistance mittens on Instagram. Now, someone knit a Selbuvotter mitten with the king, the number 7. He was the 7th. Harold the 7th, or, oh, please, that's terrible. I didn't write that down. But he was the king of Norway at the time. But the mittens were the Germans occupied Norway, and so, it was the war. But he was the rightful king. I will straighten that out in the next vlog. Up on the cuff, it said, Alt for Norge. And if anyone wore those mittens out in public, they were immediately arrested. So it was a resistance mitten, and it was knit in the colors red, white, and blue. Now, in the Selbuvotter Museum, they're in black and white, and but they were often knit in the red, white, and blue. So, in the German occupation of Norway, Trondheim, my city, there was this mitten that was a resistance mitten. Oh dear, my camera died. So that was really odd. It said I didn't have any storage, so I had to sort that out. But anyway, I was talking about the reason I wanted to share the sort of chronological history of the color work or the colors used for knitting Selbuvotter. I was speaking about the resistance mittens that had the king, the rightful king, and Alt for Norge on the All for Norway on the cuff. The last thing I wanted to say about that is that that is why they are traditionally knit in red, white, and blue. Oh, it's very, very disoriented when your camera goes out. So anyway, I saw lots of wonderful red, white, and blue and different colored mittens there yesterday, and I look forward to sharing that with you in the museum visit. But mainly, the mittens that were knit in black and white were then dyed red, and red is considered a occasion color here in Norway. So at that time, at weddings and those type of things. So I find that very interesting, and also could see that very clearly when I visited the museum. Now, finally, I just want to talk a little bit about the language, the Norwegian language. And I hope that this will be interesting. If it is not helpful, if it is not interesting, please do let me know, and I will just leave these kind of bits out, and I will focus on some other things that might be more interesting. However, if you are in a Norwegian pattern, this is one in the book, over here, you're going to find these words that I want to share with you today. So, I'm a first grade teacher, so I've just made a list of words, like vocabulary words, vocabulary that I want to introduce to you, and then I hope that maybe you can, if you need this part of the video again, you can just come back and look at it. The most important word, of course, is the word strikk, and that word just means knit. It could be in various formats. It could be strikke, strikking, ing just like in English, and that just means knitting. Strikk means to knit. Then usually in the pattern, you're going to come to size. And you might not know the word for size, but you're going to see this word lengde. And the way that it's easily to remember is that it's connected to the English word length. Lengde, length. How long is the mitten? From cuff to the top of the mitten. Now, bredde is width. that one's not so straightforward. But if you know you're talking about lengde and this word is with it, you know that in English we know length and width. So you hopefully can remember lengde, bredde, which is length and width. Okay? Then they're going to talk about, can you see the word pinne, which is directly translated stick. Those are your knitting needles, your knitting sticks. Pinne or pinned, it doesn't matter what the ending is when you're looking at it, is always your what size. They're always going to come in millimeters. Many in this book say 2, 2,5, 1, 1,5. That just means 2 millimeter, 2.5 millimeter, 2.5 millimeters, and so on. It's always in millimeters. You're not going to get this US, here in Europe, we only use millimeters. So when you say it in the United States measurement, I have to always go and look it up. But hopefully you have a gauge tool or a needle measure tool that you can just check that quickly. Now, the next word you're going to find is legg up. Now, that means to cast on. And usually right after you see the word legg up, there'll be a number. And that's your cast on number. Now, there's only 2 knitting stitches, so it's rett, which when I was learning the word rett, I just thought of the word the right way. So that means to knit. Rett is knit. Vrang sounds like wrong. So that is your purl. So rett to knit and purl is the wrong side of the knit. Now, the other thing that you're going to find in the pattern is this word, strikkefasthet. And that is gauge. Now, the way I want you to remember that word is the word fast. Your swatch is the thing you're looking at. It's set. Fast is set. And so I don't know if that makes sense. That helps me, but maybe it's because I speak Norwegian. Now, those are the words, the list of words that I want to share with you. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm not I'm a very concrete learner. So what I'm going to do is in the down bar, I'm going to put the vocabulary words and their definitions in the down bar so that you can come back to this vlog and look at it and find it as a reference. I think that could be helpful. Like a little card or an explanation. So I'll make this list just like that in the down bar below. I think that could be helpful. Now, the other thing you're going to see in the book is this just simple paragraph about how to do it. Now, that is in the chart. So, you're going to see it in the chart how to do it, really. You're going to have to use some of your knitting knowledge or your knitting background, or you're going to have to connect with someone to ask to be able to do it. You can always ask me on Instagram. Never hesitate to ask me. Now, if you ask me something that is a paid for pattern, or you haven't purchased the pattern, or you want me to translate something, I will not do that without the designer's approval. Because remember, these people, this is their livelihood. And so I'm just helping you after you have supported the work of the designer, like this book. I can't just give you this book. You have to really purchase the book and then use the book with. So that happened again. I have a lot of video on my telephone because of my trip to the museum, which just tells me that I've got to end here now, and I've got to get this pasted together and uploaded. But again, using the language within the book or within a Norwegian pattern, it's very important that you use it when you have paid for the pattern yourself or bought the book to use. And when you have these words or you contribute to these designers or these books and you really want to knit them, I think that these vocabulary words can really help you with your knitting. So usually if you can really make the connection between with your knowledge of knitting in English and also just have some of the vocabulary that you need within the pattern, that you'll be okay. And also if you, like I said, if you have done it in a way that is respectful and supports the designer, then I'm very happy to support you myself. And with that, I just wish you the most wonderful week. I hope that you get outside, and for us, it is just getting outside, soaking up this springtime and the sun. And if you are going to Edinburgh Yarn Festival, I cannot wait to say hello to you. So if you see me or you would like to say hello and you're going to Edinburgh Yarn Festival, please do that. So I'm just going to wish you a wonderful week. I will be vlogging from Edinburgh Yarn Festival throughout the event. They will be short vlogs, but I will be vlogging while I'm there, uploading as I go, and I hope you'll join me for that wonderful experience. And then, of course, after that, we will get back to the museum exhibition. I am going to go and work on the farm with my grå trøndersau. I'm going to bring you there to see the process of creating and developing another batch of my yarns. And so with that, I wish you a wonderful, cozy knitting week. Goodbye from Norway until next time.